So we're back with the episode 19 Nizi Project 2 final stage. This is the first part of the finale. Next week is going to be the actual full finale, I believe. But this show starts off with a here and now performance, which is kind of the theme song of the show, I suppose. And so the boys come out and they do their thing right here. And for me, the performance was fine. The only negative I would say about this performance, and it's not really even a negative, it's just that every now and then I would look up and Miraku would kind of stand out in kind of the odd nail way. And so from that sense of it, I'm not sure if he was doing anything wrong, but for me, I just guessed that the physical presence is just different than the other members, which may be a negative for him, mainly because if you're not gelling it completely with the group, then maybe uh, you're kind of not going to be unified in those times when you need to look unified. And so I kind of feel bad about that because it's not really something that's in his control. Just having a different physical presence than everyone else. But I think that's just the way it is. But anyways, after this performance, we have this MC introduce JYP and also his three guest judges here, which are 3 Racha from Stray Kids, I guess it's a subgroup, Han, Changbin, and Bang Chan. After this, JYP says he has no final number for the group, and so all 9 can make it, and I hope all 9 do make it. But I suspect that Araku might be in danger, just based on just the intro performance, really. But also because, in terms of his gem and cube collection, he's got 1 out of 4, where every single other person has 3 out of 4. And so hopefully this doesn't affect him or impact him negatively. But, if you're just looking at that intro performance, it makes you kind of concerned a little bit. Is he going to be able to overcome it? I don't know. But the boys are introduced, and then we get to see their individual practice and stuff and their song decisions. And so Team 1 gets a original song called Whatever, Whenever, and it's kind of like an upbeat R&B song. And right away, when they start practicing it, they get winded, and they lose breath instantly because of all the jumping that's in the song. And what this reminded me of, I did P90X maybe 7 times now, and there's a day that always bothers me, which is the plyometrics day, which is basically all the jumping. And so I feel like I can kind of relate to these guys feeling like it was hard to do that part in terms of just the physicality of it. After this, they did a segment where the boys had messages for each other, and I guess I'm not sure if each one sent one to each of them, but it seemed like they kind of did a rotation, so it wasn't over the top. And then after this, they had touching family messages. And so the boys' families from homes got to send them video messages for them. And I noticed that, they started to get a bit emotional. And after seeing this, I was like, I kind of hope none of them get dropped. Because once you include the families, I would feel bad about some of them not making it after having so much hope and so much encouragement from home. So, after this, they rallied, and it seemed like the boys, in terms of their performance, they're just having more fun in practice than the girls on A2K or even Produce 101. And, when I saw that they were doing so well in practice, I felt like, these guys are probably ready. We get to their performance, and I feel like they had really a good kind of unified, soft energy, which means that they were kind of precise. They didn't overdo it. And it was kind of a very measured performance in that respect. The only thing I would say is that there are times when I saw AG, and I feel like he needed to work in his expressions a bit, in that they weren't projecting the feelings. And I think it's just kind of like a trouble with his face, always seeming kind of like this straight kind of look to him, just kind of like normal look. And I feel like he has to work maybe harder than the others because of it. But other than that, I thought the vocals were good. They could have reached harder and gotten more raw, But like I said at the beginning of this critique, is that they had a kind of soft and precise energy, and so they weren't gonna get like hard and raw because they put in exactly the energy they needed. And so overall, it was like good performance. Uh, when it got to the criticisms at the end, Three Racha basically said they had an amazing performance. Overall, match the vibe. The enjoyment was felt. And JYP, he said that uh, the main character and protagonist of this group is Ken, which is kind of like funny because when you look at what the what is it the people kind of discussing this show, they say that Ken has a lot of favoritism from JYP, and he's always had that favoritism. So this commentary was kind of more just like fluffing in a way, because JYP's messaging was this guy had the most growth. But a lot of people just noticed that JYP has always kind of liked Ken. And then I said in the last episode that, Ken kind of gives you that JYP kind of vibe anyways, because he's the most normal looking guy. He's like the office guy. And so maybe just the vibe of him being normal and then being able to perform like a star is something that impresses JYP. But other than that, you talk about Haru having a leader vibe and not lacking in dance at all. This was according to 3 Racha. JYP said he had the least ups and downs, never had a bad performance, and was stable. JYP said you did well overall. JYP said Ken was dancing and singing the brightest out of everyone. JYP also negatively criticized AG and saying he didn't become the main character of the song, and saying that his expressions and dance move were accurate but didn't feel sincere. And I kind of relate to that. I can see that something about AG, he was not really expressing it well. But it's not to say that he was off. And I think JYP said it right. His expressions and moves, I guess they were accurate, but they didn't project and feel sincere. And then you get to what they say about Maraku, and all of 3 Racha liked Maraku, and I didn't have a problem with Maraku's performance here. But JYP said he had a bright vibe, but he wants him to dance even brighter with wider movements and accuracy. And so I kind of felt like that was kind of a knock on him. But I actually think he didn't do poorly here compared to the intro performance. And maybe, I don't know if JYP is just kind of like getting us ready to kind of like knock him off the show. Hope not, because I feel like you can work with what Maraku has. It's just a technical thing, right? When you're saying he has to have wider movements and accuracy, these are things you can work on. They're not bad things. You said he had a bright vibe, which is probably the hardest thing to figure out. But anyways, that's the first team whatever, whenever, Team Haru. So the next team is Team Tomoya with Because of You. And so these guys get a song that is kind of like way more chill than the last teams. Yuki is actually worried about expecting the song because it's easier to be powerful, but maybe harder to be kind of like soft and precise. And so they get to practicing, and even the trainer is kind of like saying that they're frowning and they don't match their movements or even the song vibes in terms of like their looks. And this is basically a situation where, because it's an original song, even Tomoya, he says that they're lacking references for how to perform the song. And now it's kind of like up to them to choose how to creatively adapt to it. And so, they all sit down and start reading the lyrics and start really getting a feel for it. They're interpreting it. And one of the things that they determined is that the song meant gratitude, and they had to decide who to be grateful towards. And then so, similar to the last group, they have a segment where the boys send messages to each other, and then they get more family messages as well. And this reminded me of other contestants in this show who didn't really come this far. And I can remember especially one member. I think it was, his name started with a T, and I'm blanking on it right now, but his mom had been really supportive of him through the show. And that was just kind of a reminder of like these people aren't just by themselves and fulfilling their own dreams, but they have people who have been supporting them all this time. So we get to their performance, and to me this performance looked really pro, actually. I felt like each member was really giving a raw and pure performance, and this is something I didn't feel from the other group. The other group was just too precise, and maybe that's a good thing technically if you're really into like being a precise and technical dancer. But at the same time, I feel like that was the other team was lacking something and not going all out, whereas this team really hit it. And I even noticed that Seita was doing a really good job here. He's really strong, and I've been noticing for a while that he's been doing really well. Uh, Another thing I would say that Tomoya, there's subtleties to his movements. Like even doing a body roll, Tomoya is on a different level than the other guys, and it looks slightly better than the other guys, and you just notice it because like you have these little like sub movements that are hitting you a little bit harder than the other guys. Like in that respect, if you were to compare like this, like Tomoya doing a move, he's slightly he's ahead of the others, and maybe Yuki is one who is like slightly stiffer. But that's just in comparison to Tomoya. That's not saying he's a stiff dancer at all. It's just saying that because of Tomoya's extra movements, it just shows how far Tomoya is ahead of the other guys, and that he makes the other guys kind of like appear kind of stiff. But we get to what the other guys have to say, and Sriracha was very like good at praising everybody. And then JYP said, only one part of the song basically wasn't in sync, but the timing and sync was otherwise unbelievable, and they had a high sense of unity. Basically, when it came to Tomoya, JYP said he shone bright, exceeding expectations vocally. Sriracha said that Yuki caught their attention in terms of their voice, and their eyes were drawn to him, and they found that his vibe was overflowing. JYP said he thought differently, and that he could tell that Yuki was actually shrinking during a part of the song, and Yuki basically confirmed that. Yuhi, the Sriracha said his stability and performance were good. JYP said his vibe was good, but the dancing was inaccurate and precise. And I would say I didn't notice that at all personally. And then he said Seita needs to put more feeling into the dance, and I disagree with that completely because I felt like this was like Seita's. Even though I noticed Seita kind of coming out of this shell, and even like I said that during the field trip kind of day, the outdoor sports day, I noticed that Seita was really giving something, and like kind of like really coming out with his energy. In this performance, I especially saw Seita really giving it, like especially vocally, his voice was like, it was like giving me the power that I wanted out of these guys, like the rawness, and not just like in his like big voice, but also in his small voice, and like his dancing and his stride. And so I don't agree with what JYP said at all about Seita, and I hope this isn't like some kind of like a plant in order to kind of like justify removing people like Seita or Miraku, because I like Seita a lot. I hope he stays in the group. And so maybe we just didn't see the same thing, and it was just kind of a coincidence, not so much like some kind of underhanded vibe like I'm implying. But anyways, that is that, and yeah. So overall, I would say JYP was maybe harsh on Team Tomoya and Miraku in terms of the feedback he was giving was very more corrective on this team than the other team. And but I personally think both teams did well, but I just liked Because of You's reach better in terms of how raw they were and how they hit a high note. They reached higher and hit higher, whereas the other team was very precise and they just kind of gave you exactly what the performance was, but at the same time there was a deadening to it, and that's kind of surprising considering it's such an upbeat and bright song that they had to perform. But anyways, they get to deliberations, and strangely enough, JYP says hearing Sriracha's opinions, which were unified, changed his mind. And then the winner was Team Haru. And so I don't know what that means, that JYP changed. Did JYP agree with me and say that Because of You was better, but then because of what Sriracha said, he ended up choosing Team Haru? That's interesting, because I would say that Because of You is the performance I actually wanted. But it's not to say that the other guys did badly. But yeah, it shows that Sriracha selected Team Haru probably because it was kind of a stable performance more than it was a great performance. And I would say that's really interesting on its own. Anyways, that's the end of it all. There's going to be a second round, and they're both performing the same song in the second round. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comment box down below. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.